What is up, YouTube, Steam blockchain? Today I want to talk a little bit about the text extractor device. And I want to call it that because I think that we make up what devices should be called. We have called our devices smartphones, but I think in the future we can label smartphones can evolve into something else. And this idea came up to me the other day when I was looking at a YouTube video, and I was looking at ways. I saw that they had a caption of the subtitles, so they basically ripped the a lot of the information from the video. Because, for example, if you have a podcast on YouTube, maybe 3 hours long, you can have YouTube generate text that is being said in the video. And if you're going to be honest, then you basically have most of the video in text form, most of the information in text form, and a lot of the other stuff, the visual stuff, a lot of that is just fluff to make an entertaining experience. So it was kind of interesting. I noticed that when I downloaded this file, the subtitles file, then I converted it to raw text. 3 hours turned into 100 megabytes around. And that was so fascinating for me because I realized, okay, I can, or no, it wasn't 100 megabytes. It was, so I did that test and I think it was 60 KB or something. So you can basically download information from a video in a few, or like in a millisecond. And then I started to think, okay, wait a second, you can download, and I started to look at numbers. Okay, you can download 1,000 videos, 2 hours long, and it would be around 130 megabytes. Okay, and that is kind of interesting because the amount of knowledge you get in that is pretty amazing. And that's also when it kind of comes to my mind that we need sort of a device like this, a text extractor device that can pull text from any source from the cloud to a device that just needs the English alphabet and you just need internet. It doesn't have to be too advanced. You just has to be able to display the English alphabet, the, what is it, 24 letters or something like that, 25, something like that. And then you only need some internet access, so it can connect to the cloud where it can basically pull stuff. So it's very interesting to see how efficient you can make this information device. Because then you can also, of course, combine it with a bunch of other things. For example, you can have even, you have your own voice be that scanned and read all text, or any other voice. But the core idea behind this is that, I mean, we can really make devices cheap. I mean, we can make information super cheap. And the text extractor tool is such a fascinating thing to consider, because, I mean, clearly the whole industry is going there either way. The way technology is just becoming better and better and better, and it's interesting how that this text extractor can be used with a number device, because eventually what we then will be able to do is, when you have this little device, and doesn't even have to be a device, I mean, that's the question. Now we are holding smartphones, but at the rate of technology, I don't think we're gonna hold smartphones in another 5 years, because it's just going to be so small, and it's going to be working so good. And a lot of what we think we're doing on the internet, we think we're doing a lot of stuff, but a lot of it is just fancy stuff. We like entertainment. I mean, a lot of it is just entertainment, right? And information is an aspect of it, but it's very interesting. For example, let's say a person is without internet access, but they want to download most of what happened on the internet today. They will be able to download that with this text extractor device. They will be able to download that in probably a millisecond or something like that. And maybe it would be, I don't know, 20 to 30 articles, or maybe 100 articles. It's not that much text. And a couple of videos, it extracts the information. And of course, this would be a pretty interesting device, because it would be pretty basic from the start, but then it would be interesting to see how people are gonna play with expanding on this, because information is something that I think that people, I mean, what we're doing with these devices, I think that people are gonna dive deeper into looking at it more from a philosophical perspective, because soon we're gonna have this I mean, when you have this knowledge, for example, you know what you then can do? You can, I mean, you can already do it in some ways. For example, you can have your voice be recorded and you can make it into text. You can already do that on your Android device or Apple device, but it's a lot of fluff, it's a lot of fastness around it. I think that if you just have a device that just niches in on text and trying to understand text and how humans relate to text, that would be ideal, because I think a lot of companies, for example, a smartphone, it spreads itself too thin, it has low battery, but if you just make a device that just focuses on text, there will be massive value, and it's probably going to come eventually. And for example, let's say how people are going to play with information is gonna be very interesting, because what people are going to do, for example, is a device is going to record their sound, and then you will be able to send this to this text generator that sends it to the cloud, that connects it to a virtual identity that can make a video out of it, that can make a text article about it, you can basically play with how you want to express information or content or something like that. So virtual identities, what a huge thing we already see right now with emojis. People love the emojis, that you can make your own custom emojis. But when you can make custom emojis with identities that can move around and that they can watch you, and then that you can make multiple identities out of that, and then that you can tokenize those identities, and then that you can put in your sound or any other sound from another person that basically come from the text extractor device, that gets, I mean, that is just interesting, right? And the reason why I don't want to call it, let's say, a smartphone, a device like this, because a device like this would need to have custom hardware and software, which is brand new. And just because it would be so small, I'm not sure what it would, lots of experimentation would be needed. Because you will be able to do, first you could do a text device, then you can also do a device that just handles numbers. But I think that this would have to be two separate companies, because I think that there's so many nuanced things in this field, and a person can go deep in just one section. I think that a lot of things spread themselves too thin, and there's going to be a lot of new niches coming in. For example, be able to understand text, and text is such a huge part of how humans communicate. And there's so many different languages, there's so many hidden stuff in words. I mean, there's just that it's such a huge niche, and there is basically a lot to explore that humans haven't explored with technology. For example, how a lot of people use technology right now is just that they don't dive deeper into anything of it, they just use the surface of it. And there's so many niches that people can dive deep into. For example, the number generator device that I talked about in the past, how if you had a number generator device, and you can, for example, let's say this number generator can show any ones and zeros that you want from any sort of thing that you want. For example, let's say you wanted to show the ones and zeros from some Bitcoin wallet or whatever, or use some stats in a game, because many times, and it needs internet connection, so it's almost like a calculator with a real-time function to update information. Because many times, for example, right now, let's say I play a game, I have some stats that I want to keep track of. Let's say it's a away from keyboard game, or let's say it's a game that, let's say I want to do something else on my phone, and I don't want to have to go back to the game all the time, or in the phone, because I'm doing something else on the phone. and most phones are not that good at multitask. They drain a lot of battery. So if I can just send that little information to my number generator device, that would be amazing. Okay, if I just want to see the stats, because I just need to keep track of some ones and zeros and some digits here and there, basically. So this is an interesting field. I think it's a very interesting field. How you can, for example, write something and you sort of know that someone's going to observe that text, someone's going to read it, someone's going to sort of analyze it and look at it. And it's very interesting how you can play with words and how both people might be unaware of it. They might make their language easier, or they can also make it more advanced. And how you seeing a word, words, spells, basically, how words can basically trigger something in a human. And we humans try to go to sort of social media first before understanding language and how humans relate to it. We probably should dive deeper first into some text extractor thing. And sort of a funny thing you see when you analyze a lot of text is if you just remove the fastness, the video, if you just have the text, you see that people don't really say that much. Or they don't really know that much, because it looks like people know much, because when you see them, it looks very authority that one person is talking. Whoa, one person is talking, you know. But there's a lot of stuff that people can experiment around with, and it's such a big field, the virtual identities, that people can create some animal, some creature, and then they can put text into some thing that they've generated and let it talk. You know, it's kind of cool. We sort of saw this, but not with text. With Minecraft, you can build stuff, but you didn't have the virtual identity aspect of it, because technology wasn't really there yet. And now it's sort of coming, AI, blockchain, all this. In the next few years, it's just going to speed up. It's just going to be more exciting. And we see some hardware devices right now. For example, we see wallets, but it's still pretty basic. I want a device that just focus on either text, and you just need a simple device. English alphabet can you have text from the cloud that gets sent to the device, and it needs to be very intelligent. And it's a good question what kind of hardware and software it should have and run and so on. And I'm a big fan of making a device that doesn't have all the fluff that people don't really need. Like a lot of people, they don't need a device with dual cameras or so much bloatware, so much stuff that just you never use. You don't use 99% of the stuff. So why not just have a device that's super efficient, you just do what you want, and then dive deeper into that. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Maybe it sounds a little bit all over the place, but I like to dive deep into stuff. Or, you know, it's fun exploring. And in many ways, a weird thing I think about intelligence, or a kind of cool thing, is I don't think really you can put everything in logic. So some things cannot be understood by using the logical dimension of a person. I think there sort of is another dimension of intelligence, which there's way more mystery around, but it is on all the time. It seems to do its things. So you can't really, in many ways, I think, see the dive deep process of a lot of things, because there's nothing of it you can analyze, because the intellect is the wrong tool for it. So you kind of, in many ways, have to talk about this in a little bit of an open, broad perspective, so it doesn't really sound deep, because you can't really show it in a logical way. Logic cannot go to the place. So yeah, I believe in mystery. And yeah, have an awesome day, YouTube. Have a great day. Steam blockchain. Bye bye.